Welcome to Nordic Magic Link. Today I have Maria with me from Hyldemors Have, and she is a Nordic Shamanic practitioner, and she teaches in Denmark, and we're going to talk to her about all things Nordic shamanism. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you very much, Emma. I'm very pleased to be here again. It's good to be back in your hands.
It's so good to have you back, and we're going to try to follow up on whatever we left behind in our last conversation, which, you know, we did go around in a lot of topics within Nordic shamanism, but we're going to see if we can pick up anything that we missed. And let's just start with, for people who didn't hear the last episode, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, small questions to start out with. Well, for the last almost year and a half, I have been working full-time teaching shamanism and herbalism here from my home in the woods in a small part of Denmark, south of Copenhagen. Who I am a mother of two teenage girls with all included of temperaments and rage things. But I live alone here and I run my business from home, as I just said. And most of my teachings right now are, due to the COVID situation, of course, mostly online. But soon we will re-engage in meeting live, and I will teach here in the forest and also on bigger courses in Copenhagen where we meet more people. And mostly the part about the Nordic shamanism, as I said a little bit about last time, that the Nordic shamanism is a sort of modern interpretation of what it could have been we have been doing 1,000 years ago. We don't have a continuing lineage of knowledge. We have to sort of reinvent what we're doing, and from that we take a lot of inspiration from other cultures, other shamanic cultures around the world. For example, in South America, North America, Siberia, and even also in our own Nordic regions of the Sami people. They also have a strong shamanic tradition. So we sort of look into what is the center of all this shamanic work. There is the work with the spirits, there's the work with the altered state of consciousness, and there's the part of the spirit, the nature spirits, the spirit guides. And from that, we sort of try to see how can we work with this power for our own personal development, but also how can we give back to the community and help other people, and how can we give back to the land most of all. Not most of all, but that's a very important part for me at the moment.
And how now you mentioned the Sami people. Is it safe to assume that the traditions that we had in Scandinavia in the pre-Christian era, is it safe to assume that it would have been very similar to the Sami culture's tradition?
Without being an expert on the Sami traditions, I would guess so, that we in their tradition see much like it could have been in our more southern regions also. But we do have some old sagas who tell us about this Völva and how she performed a shamanic act called seiðr, and from that we can take some inspiration too about they do tell that she call upon the spirits and she journeys to the other realms, and so there's again a center core that is the same, rather if you come from one region or another region. So it's a very good idea to look at these different cultures to seek our inspiration. We do, as one a friend of mine said, we were celebrating spring equinox just a few days ago, and he said we have our own firewood, but we need to lend the flame from other places because we don't have the flames right here anymore. And I think that was very nice way of putting it.
Yeah. And you mentioned seiðr a moment ago, and so maybe you can explain to people how is Nordic shamanism different from other shamanic traditions?
I could start with saying how it is the same, and then
Yeah.
it would maybe be easier to distinguish it from that, because as I have behind me the drums, we do use the drums also, we do use the rattling, we do use the journeying, but in the Nordic tradition, we don't. It's not probably, or we don't have any recollections of the drum in exactly this region, but we do have the staff. I have prepared a little. It's like the
good.
TV kitchen. No, but we use the staff as a journey tool, you could say, and we use the song because we don't journey on the drum beat, but we journey on the power of the song, an enchanting song. It could be either an intuitive song or a special song for the occasion. And from that on, we use also the nature very much to do the work outside in nature. We could either make the side journey, if we could call it that, alone, or we could do it in a group of people where there's one Völver, the side practitioner, which she or he will be sung on the journey. Instead of being drummed away, we will journey on the song, the power of the song. So that is mostly the part where it is a lot not the same as typical shamanism, where you often journey on the drum beat and some often in modern way lie on the floor with a cover on your eyes and then go away to the lower worlds or upper worlds, whatever. I experience that it is the same as soon as I am journeying. It's not that I journey to a different region when I journey with side. It's the same.
You're going to Valhalla.
Yeah, sometimes I do, but just as often I go to the lower world or I go to the whatever. I journey a lot actually when I think about it in the middle world, which is what we think about this world is, but in its enchanted cover.
Mm.
So maybe that's a little, but I'm not. I couldn't say that this is just how I experience it. I haven't made statistics on it, and I don't know if it's the same for my colleagues or
Right.
fellow practitioners. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you journey to this other realm, how does it look for you?
Yeah, for me, we had that question the same last time.
Did we?
Yeah, but it was very cute because you were curious about how it looked in my world, and or in the worlds, and I could just say that when I go to the other worlds, maybe I have a poor imagination because my worlds look a lot like these worlds, but this world, not these worlds. But I can do things that I don't do in ordinary reality. I can fly, I can shapeshift, I can talk to the gods, I can hear what the water tells me. But very often it looks like places in nature, but from various different countries or landscapes. That my healing teacher, for example, she lives in the upper world, but actually to journey to her, I need to go through an ocean on the back of a seal, and then we have to split through the ice. And when I enter or no, I come up of a hole on the ice, and I will be on the ice surface, and she will live in a ice hut. Looks just like a Coca-Cola commercial, but she does live there. But all of that is happening in the upper world. I have this experience of going up and going through, which is normally how we distinguish upper world from middle world and lower world. Up is up, of course, and lower is down.
It makes me think of in New Age, terms, astral projection or something like that. Do you think that's what it is to an extent?
I have not worked very much with these traditions or newer traditions,
right?
But
leaving the body, like the soul, the spirit body, leaving the physical body.
Yeah, I think that there's some part of it would be very much the same, or could be translated into the same sort of experience. The one part where I think it maybe, without knowing, it is different, is that we always journey with a clear intention or a clear journey mission. So when I go to the upper world, it is always for trying to find a solution or healing or help for some question, and I wouldn't know if it is the same with the astral projection or how you work with that.
Okay, it's interesting. You said that this particular spirit guide lives in an icy world, because we were just saying, it's not necessarily the Nordic regions, but actually, in this case, it still
is. I actually think that there's a story behind that is a little bit personal, but it's just fine for me to talk about. I met this healing teacher many years ago, actually. Right now, time is passing, I went on a healing course, to be taught how to use shamanic healing. And the first journey we had to do was to meet this healing teacher. And I have a past history with sexual violation, sexual overgrep, how do you call it? Abuse,
assault. I'm sorry.
Thank you, but that's okay now. When I was a little girl, and the boy who was doing it to me, he was actually from Greenland, and it was a part of my personal journey that I at that time hadn't looked upon or haven't worked. I have worked with it with a therapist, but I have never worked with it in a shamanic way. So for me, it was a hint for me to look upon this specific topic or this specific situation from a shamanic perspective. And it healed a lot, actually, that this teacher I came onto the ice, and I met this crazy, wild, strong woman, and I call her changing woman, because she never showed me her face, but she's sometimes she's young and sometimes she's old, and she's really all women in one. And that connection with her, and the revelation that I had to look upon this time of my life at that time was very healing. So all in all, of course, there's the part about being Nordic and all that, but I also think that this was the spirit's way of showing me direction, that here you have something that you have not yet looked upon with our help. So I did that, yeah.
So was it a reference, it being in an area that looked like Greenland? It was a reference to this guy being from Greenland?
I definitely felt so, yeah, because up until that, I have had a little, if something was from Greenland, or if there was references to it or something, there was a little bit inside of me that was off, because I didn't let myself feel it, but it was not ready, or I don't want to look upon this. And that helped me a lot, and I would very much love and hope so that I can go visit Greenland someday in the future. And it's actually yeah, that's a whole nother story, which is not about nature work and all, but that is also what the shamanic work can do for personal healing.
I've actually been to Greenland when I was, I think, 14 years old. Went with my school class. And I remember we would walk every day in nature, 8 hours, maybe a day. And I've never felt as happy and at peace as when we were there and doing that. So I don't know if there is something about just having the purpose of walking every day, or if it's being in nature, but it just tells me that this is the natural human experience, what we are meant to be doing, or what we I guess have always done, when we were nomads, which we have been, much longer than we've had farms and agriculture. So what do you think about that? Because we were going to go into nature and nature's role in shamanism. So maybe there's something you can talk about there.
Yeah, I think sorry. I think there's you hit a very important spot that I haven't really thought about myself. So kudos to you. But no, the part about walking, I think it's right on the spot that we were actually made to do this, to walk, to be outside in nature. We were not made to live in solid concrete houses, and the moving part. I'm not especially physical in any way, but I do walk every day, and I walk in nature, and for me it's like my free time. It's where I clear my head, and as you say, the blood pressure lowers, and for me also, of course, it is also the time where I connect to the spirit world, but in the fashion of still being here, not totally alternating consciousness, not going into trance, but walking with besides the trees I see every day. I have the buzzards circling. I live in a very lovely place. There's white-tailed eagles and ravens, and not bears, because we don't have them in Denmark, but there could as well have been this kind of animals too. And what I get from nature and people who does the same thing as I do is I think we step a bit closer to the real belonging to a place. And I often hear from people, from modern people and people who comes to visit to get healing or just guidings, that they feel we are back to the rootless feeling again, this feeling of not belonging and having a strong urge for something that they can't really put the finger on. It's not like they don't know what's wrong, they just don't feel whole or complete, and they feel this urge for there must be more, or there must be something different. And at the moment I sent them out to the woods, and they come back when I have courses in the woods, and they just smile, and it's like every jigsaw falls into place, and I think that is to take it back to where you started. It is the part about not necessarily walking, but being in nature, because that is our natural habitat. That is where we were made to be.
Yeah. So important, and something that most of us have completely forgotten today. It reminds me of, also in the Japanese culture with this idea of forest bathing. That now they're looking at in science, that there's actually, plant compounds that are in the air that we need, that our body needs to absorb, to be healthy. So there's probably many things about being in nature, that also, I mean, natural light, just the fact that we live indoors and we have windows, that actually blocks out most of the light spectrum. So we are actually blue light toxic just from living indoors. So and then we have on top of that, we're looking at screens with the blue light, but we're missing the whole spectrum of light because we're not outdoors. And they know that now with science, with the mitochondria, how important it is for humans to get natural light. And it's like all this knowledge is forgotten for the most part in mainstream culture, at least. How do we get back to that? I mean, with this crazy modern society, is it possible, do you think?
I think so very much. And I actually had a plan of not saying the C word, but it has, I know in Denmark at least, it has put a lot of people in a place where they need to rethink their daily life, and especially people with smaller children, who were going crazy inside the houses, and they were not able to go to kindergarten and school and all these kind of things. They went to the woods, or they went outside. And in Denmark, that is what I know, the outdoor culture has really bloomed, and a lot of people is going back to nature now, and they go to campsites and make bonfires and take hikes and all these kind of things. So there is a movement in the society right now due to the COVID situation and the lockdowns that are pushing people back into nature. So that is sort of a blessing in disguise. The problem is, from my stand, is that people lack the knowledge to be in nature. So they sort of have to also invent or re-experience, how do we have respect for nature. I'm not a grumpy old lady, but there's a lot of people in my woods, and they have to sometimes step off to take a pee, and that's just perfectly fine. But they leave their paper around in the woods, and I think if they knew that this paper will dissolve, but not in the next year or so, they might think differently. And that is sort of these small things or small steps that we have to also take into consideration when we start to use the nature more. But that is, of course, all the science about being in nature. And I applaud that people are going back into nature, of course, because it gives me a chance to talk with a lot of these people who walk the woods at this time about what they can actually sense, because what I do and what I talk about, I don't talk with every family that I meet in the street, because then they would probably call the police or ambulance or something. The blue van, it's called in Danish.
The psychic hospital.
But I do tread lightly and try to ask them to maybe they can try to connect with the tree, because how I work and how I see things, and that is not my saying, it's of course a scholar who has said this very beautiful saying about the world is full of persons, just some of them are human persons, and the rest is the non-humans, and we are all interconnected, and we can relate and communicate. Maybe not like you and I have a chat, but we can sit with the spruce, or we can sit with the lake, and we can påvirke. How do you know? We can
affect
each other's energy. I talked with a friend the other day, and she said it's just because the oak is so very old, so oak tree talks really, really slow. And maybe this is that we really have to give ourselves time to lean into this non-human world of talking together. But for me, I would have gone crazy, I think, if I didn't have nature. Because it is in nature that I ask for healing, I ask for guidance, I ask for going back to center when things are crazy. Most people know this feeling of struggling with some everyday life problem, and then they take a hike or go along the sea, and most people will come back with this, oh, now I know, now I have the solution, or things have sort of lowered itself. Or for me, I try to do that, but in a very conscious way. So I ask for help for this specific problem if I'm dealing with some sort of, it could be a conflict with a friend or something, or a child. And I ask my spirit helpers to please, and also the nature spirits, please help me. How can I solve this conflict with XYZ? And I use a technique called a medicine walk. In Danish, we call it a varselstagning. The seeing of omens, or taking omens. And always we make it as a ritual when we do this sort of technique, that it has a beginning, a calling upon the spirits, where you sort of present yourself to the world and to the spirits, and declare why you are here, what kind of help you would like to have, and then you walk along not a specific path, but the way you are being shown, the path you are being shown. Maybe you will hear a small bird on one side, and suddenly a ray of sun, yeah, will direct you in another way, and you just follow these signs, and all at the same time you remember what was your question. Your question was to, how do I solve the conflict with? And maybe you see some small ants all working together on solving a problem, and some people hear like voices from the trees, and some people just get senses of, oh, now I see, now I saw two geese flying together. I can see we need to solve this problem together, or how it, I don't know how it is interpreted. It's very important that, as we talked about the last time, please don't go back and Google it. I would really like you to feel it inside. What does the two geese mean for you, or what does river or water means to you, instead of going back to this and that cultural tradition of interpreting sky or earth, or but look upon how do oak mean to me, or things like that. That is an important part. But also when we walk on these medicine walks, we do it with a foot in each world, sort of like I'm walking in this world, so I can see if there's a pit and I need to take care of myself and not falling into it, and I can also see if there's a runner that will pass by me, but I'm still a little bit in between the worlds, so I have the feeling of better connection to my spirit allies, and to staying in contact all along this walk. And then I return back and cross the threshold that I also started with, and at that point I give thanks, and the ritual is sort of over. And that is a very beautiful way of working with nature without having a lot of experience in working shamanically. That was a lot of words. I'll take a sip of coffee.
Yeah, that's a beautiful beautiful ritual. Is that is that something we have from other shamanic traditions, or do we know if that was used in the old shamanic traditions in the north?
The part about taking omens we have from folkloristic traditions, or in Denmark and probably around all of Scandinavia. We have some. I remember the first 12 days after Christmas, they looked upon the weather, and then the weather from each day was noted down to be the weather for each month for the rest of the year, for example. And there's a lot of small knowings of these kind of taking omens. I'm not very familiar with it, but the part about reading the signs in nature has been strong here, but probably also in other traditions as well. The way the recipe for this ritual is also known as the medicine walk, and I'm not completely sure if it stems from Michael Harner's core shamanism as much of my other work does. I have been taught by Annette Høst and Jonathan Horwitz, which is the Scandinavian part of the Shamanic Foundation. No longer a part of the Shamanic Foundation, but usually used to be.
Mm. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there was something that I just had, and then I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, now I remember.
Yeah.
Because you were. Sometimes I'm spacing for a second.
Yeah.
You were
totally fine.
you were talking about talking to, for instance, the oak tree and things like that, and then you went into a little bit about the traditions of that we have in Scandinavia, and it made me think about myths and nature spirits, like elves and that sort of thing. Is that do you believe these people who see elves and other creatures of Scandinavia, do you believe that they are a personification of the plants or of the trees, or what do you have you thought about this?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it actually. I can remember that in the beginning, when I started working with shamanism, I asked my teacher, "You say that you see the elverpiger, which is elves. Yeah, in Denmark we have a strong tradition about the elverpiger, the girls of elves, which are very beautiful, and de lokker, hvad hedder det?
They are tempting.
They're tempting strangers or people who travel along the road to come into the mounds of the elves, and they will not leave them out again. And she said that she saw them, and I was sort of like, I come from an academic world, so I was very mistrustful actually. And are you for real? Do you really see elves? And working with this for the last almost 20 years now, I know now what she means, that when we go into this altered state of consciousness, the world do change, and we do see things that we don't see in ordinary reality. It is like the fairy tales come true in some sort of way. And when we go out in the dawn of the day, and everything is shadowy, and it's easier not to see and maybe to see at the same time. So I think the nature spirits and the stories we have heard when we were, you have probably too, when we were small, about these different kind of nature spirits. I think they are the best words that some people have put on these experiences. the years, because I see there are some spirits out there, and I think they just belong to the land. They are stewards of the land, and stewardesses, maybe, if that's a word. um, and we can engage with these spirits in coexisting. A lot of reciprocity needs to be put into place here. If we want to live on this land, we have to take care of it. We have to give something back. And what can we give back? We can give our attention and our gratitude. And now I'm totally running off from a different lane, but to try to come back, I think there are also crazy people in the world who see things that I don't see. But are they crazy, or are they just too much in the other world? That is maybe the problem. And to live in this world, we have to have a certain amount of groundness, also not to get lost in the little people land. So yeah, to answer your question shortly, I do believe that there are spirits out there which can manifest into personifications of the creatures of our child stories, but I don't see them at broad daylight when I'm totally in my everyday consciousness. But when I walk out into the dusk, or when I work with the staff or the drum, and I call upon the spirits, I think it's a cliche, but the veil is thinner at these time of days, and dawn and day. Yeah,
And
you know what I mean.
Yeah, dawn and dusk. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's easier to see the enchanted world, you could say.
Mm. So you have seen some of these mythical creatures, you think?
Yeah. Well, I think I have seen energy creatures, uh, because when it gets dark, it's sort of that we lose our daylight side, and that is when the trees and the rocks and the fog and the mist can show their maybe real faces. That is when the tree turns into a lady, or the rock turns into a giant, or what it could be. So yeah, but what I have seen, who knows? But I have definitely had an experience of being with other creatures than myself, I would say.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm still standing.
They didn't get you to go into the
No,
what do they call
no.
them? The
Yeah,
mounds.
the mounds. Yeah, Elverhøj. No, there's a lot of beautiful old folk songs about how these elven maidens, they tempt these men on their way to their weddings, and it's very dramatic.
Yeah. It's interesting why they would target men on their way to the wedding. Maybe the
Yeah,
men had second thoughts.
yeah. It's not to know who started with these stories.
Yeah,
It's always fun to look upon. Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah. So,
Mm.
what type of work have you been doing this past year? You started some new classes for new courses for people.
Yeah, I did that because actually I think it was about a year ago when we talked the last time, or almost. And at
Yeah.
that time, I think we had just hit the first round of lockdown, and my classes or courses were getting shut down, of course. And I was walking around around at home and really had a strong urge for still teaching classes. At that time, I had already two herbal online classes but I have never done a shamanic online class course. And I was a bit reluctant because I didn't knew how it would work teaching a spiritual course in the internet, and I like to teach face to face when we work with these kind of subjects. But I started doing small videos about everyday shamanism, and it was just like 10 minutes of how to ask for help or how to find your power spot and how to connect with the spirit guides. And maybe I should do this in English. Someone is just telling me right
Yeah.
now, but yeah,
I think so.
yeah, but that were in Danish because that is what I do most. I'm up until now, maybe,
Yeah.
but but it came from a place where I just had a strong urge to still keep teaching, and there was very big interest for these videos. And at one point, I thought, well, why not put these videos into a course, an online course, and make some more videos. And that ended up in this actually it was at late December or start January. I opened the Everyday Shamans class online, and it has been great. I have just finished it, and we have met online on Zoom and have had circle meetings on Zoom, which is sort of like the new black in Denmark. We do everything on Zoom or Teams. So from what is it is worth, it was good to do it this way. It is of course not the same as sitting in circle and feeling each other's energy, but it is definitely a way of doing it that can work in these kind of situations. And the also at an advantage of it was that I could have people from more remote places of Denmark, or people who was not able to travel to where I teach. So it was good to see different people than the Tordenskjold soldater. I'm not, the common crew that will usually come on. Yeah. So yeah, I have done a lot of online teaching, and I have done more online. I do shamanic guidance where I journey for people who have a question, who are not able to journey themselves. So we have a Skype session and we talk about what is the problem for this person, and I then go on a drum journey to ask my spirit guides for advice or help or healing, whatever they want. And we meet up again on Zoom, and I deliver the message from the spirit. So it has worked okay, but it's not how I prefer to work. But again, we make do of what we can at these times, these strange things, strange times. Yeah.
Is it possible to, since you do live in a forest, can you have outdoor classes?
Yeah, I can that when the weather is okay. I
Okay.
do have a large tent in the garden, so we are actually able to sit inside I will have the next class here in 3 weeks, and we will meet real people. It's huge.
Yay.
And yeah, I have a small stove in the tent so we can heat it up, and I can have 10 people, and we can have classes, and they can lie down, they can do drum journey, and I can send them into the woods. So that's wonderful. And I'm looking very much forward to doing that, because that will be the first class I will be teaching for yeah, almost a year. So that's maybe I don't hope that I have lost it all.
Probably not.
No, I hope not. So I need to ask for help.
Didn't you have any outdoor classes in the summer? Because I remember I was in Denmark in August, and I remember everything was still open there.
Yeah, yeah. We do have. I do. We and myself. Um, I have classes all year around normally, but normally before I would shut down the classes in October and then start them up again here in April. And then only I have like a drum circle once a month where people can come and join just for journeying on a live drum. You could say it only for people who has experience with journeying themselves. So it's not like an introduction or anything. It's just I'm just the one beating the drum, so they can come and journey with that instead of journeying with the electronic drumming sound.
Okay.
So yeah, on normal occasion, I have things going on in the forest all year around. Yeah, but only smaller classes because the basic courses that I teach, the basic shamanic courses, we are a little more people, and that demands larger space, and that we're always inside in Copenhagen.
And what about the herbal classes that you teach? Is that based on the herbs of Scandinavia, or how does that work?
Yeah, I try very much to let it be based on the herbs that people can find in their neighbor area or where they live. Instead of herbs, they're descend from faraway places, and you need to buy. And the part that is very important for me is staying independent of. It's a little prepper like, but who knows when the zombie comes, and then we have to be prepared. um, I usually say that just for laugh, but I do there's a small truth in it, because I think it's nice to know that if something happens, I'm not dependent on the pharmacy opening hours or the doctor's appointment. There is a lot of things we can do with the things we have right outside, even if we don't live in the forest, even if we live nearby a park, or just have a terrace altan. How do you say that? Do you know that?
Yeah, balcony.
Balcony, yeah, sure. And have small pots with herbs in it. There's a lot of things we can have right at hand. And I usually joke about that I know only 10 plants, but these 10 plants can do everything. And of course, I know a lot of other plants, but I have like 10 really strong allies, which sort of can do most things. So it's not like we have to have a very big repertoire of a lot of strange plants. As long as you have one for healing wounds and one for headaches and one for so and so and so, then you can do most things at home with just the knowledge of this plant can do that. And that is most of what I teach. It is common basic knowledge that have got lost due to this modernization of people's we put all the trust in the medical system, and of course we do need to trust the medical system, but it's also very good to have a strong foundation of knowledge in yourself, and to get to know. Often it is like that. I experience that people, if they look outside, they have the plants they actually use the most, or have most use for. So if you have a low blood iron level in your blood, you often live in an area where there's a lot of nettles, for example, and that could be very useful for that. I think that is how the universe works a bit, that it will always put the help right where you need it. You just have to open the eyes.
And what's a good herb for headaches?
Headaches. That is actually not a Danish plant, but it lives in Denmark. There's a plant called skullcap, and you have that in the States, because I have learned from Susan Wheat, which is an American herbalist, and she has not taught me, but she has taught a lot of people about skullcap, and it's the American skullcap, I think. Oh, sorry. I think it's called Scutellaria or something. I'm not totally into the botanical names, but I can look it up. But that works. That lives in wet areas, and you can find it in nature, and you just cut off the plant. The whole plant is actually useful, and the way I work with tinctures is that I cut it into smaller pieces into a old jam jar, just and fill it up to the top, and put 100 proof vodka on it, and then it sits for 6 weeks, and then you can use it as a very good, but also a bit sedative painkiller. So you have to go a little light because otherwise you will fall into sleep.
So how many drops would you then?
I think I'll start with 5, yeah. And if the pain doesn't go away, I maybe take 5 more. But if I take 20, I know I will fall asleep. So it's. But often the way I work with herbs is when I have the time. If I have to perform, if I have to give a lecture, if I have to do a course, I don't have time for the herbs because they work in slower way. They work together with resting. They work together with drinking enough, and they're good for a day off with a headache. They are not good for a day off with work. If you see, then I go to modern medicine because we also live in a society where we have decided that if I have 20 people waiting for me, I have to perform.
Yeah.
So it's also how I work both worlds, just another set of both worlds.
Are there any other herbs that could be interesting to mention?
Yeah, well, the ones I use the most, and which is the ones that I listen that I listen. Now I'm getting tired because then the Danish words are sneaking in. I work a lot with plantain, and I do work. You can either chew it up. Your plantain is little green leaves, and there's both a narrow one and there's a broad-leaved one. You can use both kinds, and you can chew them up and put them directly on an insect bite or a scrape or cut, and they are very soothing and healing and antibacterial, and they will also help mosquito bites and bee stings to stop hurting. So it's a great plant. I always have an ointment I have made from plantain oil and beeswax, and I bring that everywhere. And people, when they see me, if we are somewhere out, oh, do I have any Viper salve? Because that people know that it just works like a charm. And from the other end of that is the yarrow, the plant yarrow, which is very good for if you make a tincture of yarrow, you can use it as an insect repellent, actually. So before getting the mosquito bites, but also as very good for cleaning wounds. So if you get a cut or something, you can put the tincture, spray it on the wound. I always keep yarrow tincture in small spray bottles. You can get from a dollar store. You can get these small spray bottles, and I have them if we go hiking or camping or anything, because they're both good for repelling insects, but also for when you do get hurt at some or get in trouble, then it's very good. And also that yarrow, and that is why it works for so many things. If you get a UTI, how you call urinary tract infection, you can use yarrow to take inside, and it works almost as good and as modern anti. I'm getting confused.
Anti-inflammatory medicine.
Yeah.
Your
bacterial things we get from the medicine. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about cranberry juice for UTI.
Yeah.
But,
And that works too, but I think that is better for sort of keeping it away. So when you got it, it's really effective to use the yarrow tincture also.
Okay.
So that is, and then I have elder, of course, elderberry tincture, good old
That's
elder.
the name of
Yeah,
your YouTube channel.
yeah, yeah.
Hyldemors Have, which means
Elder,
elderberries,
I don't,
elder
yeah,
trees garden,
mother's
mother's garden. Yeah.
garden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she is a strong ally for me too, and she is actually very covered in old myth in Denmark also because it was said that she is the tree of Freya, the goddess Freya of the Nordic mythology, and if you wanted to get pregnant, you could you could ask her for a piece of her stick or branch, and then put it in the bedroom over the bed to bless the bed, so maybe you would get pregnant if a young couple wanted to have a children. And she is also very strong help towards influenza, the flu virus. We don't know about the COVID virus, and it is not an influenza virus, but for sure, if I got hit, I would definitely do elderberry tincture. It's works very well on the immune system and battling these kind of germs who get into our system.
Elderflower or elderberry?
I do elderberry. Yeah,
Berry,
I think
you said.
yeah, elderflower you can use for lowering fevers. If fever is not all bad, but if a fever gets too high, it could damage the brain system and all these kinds. So sometimes you want to lower the fever, and that can elderflower tincture does that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's sort of works magic, the plants can do all these kind of things. And what I have mentioned, 4 plants now, and we're already pretty good covered with a lot of things. And
Yeah.
the last one maybe that would be St. John's Wort, Hypericum. It's a wonderful plant also to make for oil, to do on sunburns and any kind of burn, actually, if you got burned from cooking. And if you make a tincture of it, it's very good for brightening the mood. So if you have a winter depression or get depressed, then Hypericum can really be a good ally to help on that.
Mm.
So
And are
that
some of these herbs, are they in your forest? Like, can you walk around and just
yeah,
gather?
no, I can do that. The skull cap I cannot,
Oh.
because that I have put it in my garden now, or planted it in my garden. But the Hypericum, the plantain, the elder, they all are native now to the region. I'm I'm not a scholar in the botanical world, so I don't know when they actually arrived in this region. But uh, for now, at least, I can harvest them outside in my nearby area, and that's pretty amazing to just go right outside your door and find your medicine.
Yeah, that's cool. And you talked about being like self-sustainable to an extent. Do you also have chickens or things like that?
Not anymore. I used to
Okay.
have, yeah. I moved from my old home, which was in the countryside, uh, almost, yeah, no, well, half a year, one and a half year ago when I got divorced, and we did have chickens and all these kind of thing, and a huge garden, which I never had time to really do anything about, but it was in my mind's eye that I would have this big sustainable farm garden. And I started out with that, and then reality hit, and if you at that time I went to work from 8 to 4 and had 2 children, and life arrived sort of. But
Yeah.
no, I sustain my local community in buying from those who work with gardens and things like that.
Mm.
And I do live in the forest, so if I had chickens, I would probably feed them to the fox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah. Um, you have a lot of cool tattoos. And I wonder, you had your hands up at some point, and I saw these symbols.
Yeah.
Is there anything ritualistic?
Yeah, there is, and it's it's the rune for the sun. I don't know. One of them would be at the right way, and one of them will be on the opposite way. Either I don't know how the recording will show it, but it doesn't matter that much. The first rune I was giving on a shamanic journey 2 summers ago, and it was one of my shamanic teachers in the spirit world. I was making a journey to get to learn how to do a specific type of healing, one could say. And I asked, what do I need to remember before doing this healing? And he made this rune in my hand at the time. When you look at, like, from my perspective right now, it looks like a set, and yeah, maybe it's mirrored in the wrong way, but it doesn't matter. But I came back from this journey and I was just confused, and I told my human teacher, yeah, well, then he made a set in my hand, and I was like, is it sorrow, or the
A lightning?
I couldn't really get to wrap my head around what was actually going on. And he just looked at me like a typical teacher, like, and say, oh, lift your hand up, and what do you see now? Oh, no, now I see the S rune, or the soul rune. And at that, all of that course was around fire for me, with all of the journeys I did. And the soul rune is often interpreted as the sun, or the fire energy, and that was a perfect match for all of the other things that was going on around me at that time. And at first I just I drawed it just in my hand before doing this healing work. And then half a year later or something, I was on a rune course to know more about the Nordic runes, and get to know more and get more familiar with them. And at one point, the woman who was teaching this class, she pulled out a bag of runes, and she asked each of one of us to pull a rune out of the bag. And of course, I pulled the S rune again, or the soul rune again. And I was just like, yeah, well, of course. And then we did a journey at the end of this class, and I was shown that I now had both in runes in both of my hands, but the same soul rune. And I walked on that journey. I stepped into a fire, and I showed my hands to the sun, and I was sort of, this sounds a little bit, but it was how I experienced it on the journey. But I was connected to the sun, and through me to the fire. So it was like a circle of fire, which was going through the runes. And fast forward to not so long ago, I had to let go of something very important in my life that was sort of keeping me back. And at that time, I made another journey. This is sort of how I go through the day. And I went into a new fire. And again, I have the same experience. The runes are burning in my hands. And the goddess of death, Hel, from the Nordic mythology, she actually she invites me out of the fire, and then she teaches me that this is actually for me life and death. And now I have walked through the valley of death, and now I should learn the heights of joy. And every time I get sad, I can put these runes on my heart and heal whatever sadness there will be in it. So I just knew that I had to make the tattoos, and it wasn't so important how how beautiful or many of my tattoos are very beautiful and but the important thing about these runes were getting them, not as much having them, but having it's really the power of the runes in my hands. Yeah. So they're very, very, very important for me, actually. Yeah, on my healing journey. Yeah.
Such a powerful story. I've actually also been getting the Sovolu rune a lot lately. Yeah. I see it as creativity, you know, fire.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a really nice interpretation of it too. Yeah, I think that will work for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so most of your tattoos are there's some story behind them, or
as the chest piece I have, without being too naked, it's it's a raven, but it's a verse from it's a prayer. It's Sigdrifa's prayer. I think we maybe talked about it the last time, but it's a Valkyrie. In the mythology or in the saga, it's a story about a Valkyrie. She's been put to sleep by Odin with a enchanted spear, so she cannot wake up. And along comes this beautiful warrior, and he sees this other beautiful Valkyrie lies on whatever ground or something, and he takes his sword. How do you say that? Sword? Yeah, svärd.
Oh, no, sword.
Sword. Yeah. Yeah. It's getting late. But he cuts up her armor, and she awakens and comes back to life. And she looks upon all this beautiful world that is around her, and she blesses the world, and she blesses. She prays tribute to the gods, and actually she asked for protection and for healing and for being able to bring back to her community. It says with healing hands also at the end. So this prayer was very important, has always been very important for me, because I sing it every morning when I go out and greet the day. And for me, it's a prayer to the gods, but it's also a prayer to the earth. And I ask for a clean speech and healing hands to serve my community. So that is very important for me also. And the other tattoos I've got have also, all of them, some sort of story connected to my life journey. After my divorce, I got a huge dragon on the whole leg, and on my back I have the tree of Yggdrasil, which is the life tree from the Nordic mythology, because I was shown how I transform knowledge from the ground and sort of provide it to the people who cares to listen.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It feels very strong and real for me to do it this way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when you did this as showing a tree, I just the word on your T-shirt, Urkraft, which means, like power of, I don't know, like earth and old power.
Yeah, it's there is actually an English word for it, but now of course I cannot remember it. But it is like the oldest power, or I don't know, but yeah,
like nature's power almost.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's I have to make commercial for it's my good friends who make these T-shirts. I love them dearly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. Where can people get those?
Yeah, I can give you a link, because his page is called Urkraft. Actually, he's on Instagram and Facebook. So it's just like this, and you can find it. And it says, I know it's sustainable, ecological cotton, and it's also very well thought of.
All the stuff you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Green and all.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on before we stop this call?
I'm just always very thankful for being able to pass on this knowledge, because we also, as we talked about last time, that if only 3 people sits back with this knowledge, it will die. So of course I'm totally into sharing, and sharing tradition, and sharing how we do things. I love to pass on any kind of knowledge that I have that could serve more people than just me. So I'm very grateful for you having me here again, and being able to share the love, well, my love for nature, and for the work I do. And people can always contact me, of course, if they can find me at all the common places.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful that you wanna join on Nordic Magic Link, and you're always welcome to come back. Just let me know. I find it so interesting everything you're teaching, so I'm sure we can always geek into the topic of Nordic shamanism and herbs
Yeah,
and all that good stuff, nature.
yeah,
And
that's
of course,
wonderful.
I'll link to all your pages so people can follow you and check out all your good work. And hopefully in the future you'll have some courses in English as well. So for all
That
the Americans and all
Yeah,
the other people listening, yeah.
it's in my horizon. I could say that I want to go on a venture into the international market.
Yeah.
But it's a personal quest that I have to be ready to engage in. So
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interest for it because I think, as we've talked about before, people who are interested in shamanism in America, especially where I am, they often feel they're stealing, the Native Americans' traditions, but really they're not, because shamanism is and was in all cultures all over the world. So it's just to find the type that speaks to you, or
very
you
true.
use all of them. Just do what works for you. It's all about connecting with nature and our
Yeah,
spirit guides.
and we are all children of this earth.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So nice
Well, yeah,
having. Yeah, bye.
wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you.